Hello and welcome. That is something that I sometimes get made fun of by a certain person for saying, not made fun of, but poked fun at in an endearing, kind way. My name is Tom, and this is the Enthusiasm Project podcast. And today I'm going to do something a little bit different than what we've done in the past. Last week, Heather was here, and she was talking about sort of the struggles of being her own boss and business plans, and it was a really, really interesting, really, really cool discussion. I like hearing it as someone who is not an entrepreneurial minded, but I still work for other people, so it's really, really interesting to me to hear the struggles of people who are trying to start and create their own thing, because the stakes are so much higher than they are for me, but I admire it so much that it's like, it's one of the most interesting things to me is to hear that. So if you didn't listen to that episode, I'd really recommend that you go back and listen to that. Today, however, for me, you'll be listening to this on Sunday at the earliest, and today is Thursday. So for me right now, this is the second day of summer vacation, and I figured this would be a great day, rather than meandering about a specific theme, to just sort of go through and give some updates and some insights into what's happening, what's going on, what I'll be working on this summer, what I want to do this summer, sort of set up some goals. And then you can kind of follow me along, join me, live vicariously. I don't know, that's not the right word, but you can be a part of that with me and share feedback. And, I never really get feedback about this podcast because I think people have to listen to podcasts for you to get feedback on them. But if you ever do want to give feedback, it can be a two-way conversation, which is really, really cool. But right now, lots of things happening. So it is the second day of summer vacation. I was super excited because yesterday, on the first day of summer vacation, this just coincidentally timed out right, I got myself a brand new camera, which is like so spoiled and not a thing that I needed, but it's kind of a thing that I needed. And I sort of talked about this in the past, but there's sort of this thing where a while ago I tried to minimize my camera gear, and I used to have like a crop frame Canon 60D, and I just, I never really used it once I got a full frame camera, so I sold it. And I was trying to just keep my camera gear as minimal and effective as possible. But it also now has gotten to a point where it's sort of becoming not very minimal anymore. But at least everything that has been acquired has been done so intentionally and with purpose. And on my YouTube channel, there's a lot of videos that are about equipment and gear. And sometimes I'll specifically say in that video, like, hey, this is a thing that I bought, that I own. But other times it's stuff that I'm borrowing. So I'm not nearly at a level where like Canon's going to go, hey, do you want a free lens or a camera? But usually if I'm borrowing something like that, if suddenly I have, hey, here's a $2,000 lens that I'm comparing, it probably means that I don't own that lens and that I'm just borrowing that lens for a comparison or for the sake of the video. But it's really cool because since I'm able to borrow lenses and equipment that a lot of people don't just have access to, I can do a lot of these comparisons and these reviews that people are curious about, me included. And it sort of answers questions for a wider variety of people, which is great. And that's kind of a good purpose of YouTube, is to like, hey, let's answer questions that a lot of people have. So anyway, I can't say that anymore. I don't have as much camera gear as it might seem like if you've only watched the videos. For the past year and a half, I have my one camera, which is the Canon 6D Mark II. I've talked about it many times. It's my favorite camera of all time, and I'm holding it right now because I really love it. But this camera, it got so trashed when it came out because it just didn't have features that people were looking for. But the thing with Canon cameras, man, is you need to use them. Canon cameras come out and people look at the specs and then people trash them because they're not the specs that they wanted them to be. But then it's always like a few months later, once people start using them, it's, oh, wait, this is actually really good. And the 6D Mark II, I mean, people still talk trash about that camera to this day, which is really frustrating, especially considering how much it's dropped in price. B&H usually has it for like under $1,300. Sometimes you can find deals where it's like $1,100 with a free battery grip. That's like the best deal ever in the camera world. And so I wanted a second camera because there have been so many times lately, maybe in the past 6 months especially, at least once or twice a week, where I want to film something and I like, for whatever reason, I just need a second camera, which sounds dumb, but it's either like doing something with multi-camera would be so much more time efficient than doing it with single camera and then shooting, like a second shot and redoing things. Or a lot of stuff I do, since it's tutorials and reviews, sometimes I need to be using a camera in the video, and it's really hard because I don't have, it's just tough to do. And so I do have a Sony RX100, which is a great little point and shoot camera. I mean, it's a really good camera, but it's not the same as like a SLR or a DSLR or anything like that. And so sometimes I'll use that as a camera to get other shots, and I just have trouble mixing the footage together. The colors don't match, and the clarity and the depth of field, it just to me looks like two very, very different cameras. And so I wanted something where that quality would be more consistent. So I was like, oh, great, I'll just get another 6D Mark II. They're not horrifically expensive at the moment. And then I was able to find, I went through Canon Price Watch, which is like, this is not sponsored. That's just a cool website that just sort of updates you on good deals on Canon products. And it's actually how I bought my Sigma 24mm lens, because I didn't know what this was, but they have a thing that says street price. And if you click on street price, it's sort of this strange thing, but it is totally legit, where if you're interested in buying something, you click on street price, and then in like a few hours, someone will email you and go, okay, this is the deal. Like, we have an authorized dealer who's willing to sell this product at this price, with tax, without tax, with shipping, without whatever, the whole deal. And then you either accept it or reject it, but you don't find out what the seller is until you accept the deal. And the first time I did it, the seller ended up being Adorama. And the second time, when I bought the EOS R, it was a new place I haven't used before. They were in New Jersey, like Profeel, I think was their name, but they were amazing. Like, they were super easy to communicate with. Everything got delivered right away. They're Canon authorized. So it's really legit. Like, everything is new, but I think it's almost like Price Watch is part of an affiliate program, and that's how they can get those lower prices, is by referring customers. Anyway, that's a great way to get some expensive gear for not too expensive. Plus, I was able to get it without sales tax, which when you're buying something like a camera, that means it can save you like a couple $100. So I really appreciate that. They had a pretty awesome deal on the EOS R, and I was just kind of like, it's still more expensive than the 6D Mark II. I had been going up and back and forth if it was something worth trying out. And I figured, well, I might as well try it. If I don't like it, then I can just return it and get a 6D Mark II. Like, that price is always going to be low. I know what that camera is. This is kind of, more of a flash deal. I'll try that. And I've only had the EOS R for a day right now, but it has been unbelievable. I've not gotten to use one in person. It's a really cool camera to use, and I have some things happening this weekend that I'm excited to use it with, and I think it's really good. I just finished doing some tests, which are really funny. I think I'm going to do a video comparing the two cameras. But I did one where I compared the 6D Mark II against the R, just because I was kind of curious. So I was filming those two cameras side by side, and I filmed them just at 1080, and then I filmed them at 4K. Well, the EOS R at 4K, the 6D at 1080, because that's what it can do. And then I put them on the computer screen. I was watching them side by side, and like audibly, I couldn't believe the difference. Even with 1080, I was like, oh my God, the EOS R is so much clearer. What? And then I did the 4K comparison, and I was like, oh, it looks like you could reach in and just like hit me in the computer screen. And I couldn't believe it. And Heather was out there, like outside in the living room area, and she was like, are you okay in there? Because she heard me talking, and I went out and I was like, you have to see this. You won't believe how much clearer it is. And then we came in and she looked and she was like, I know you want me to be blown away by this, but like, I can't see a difference. And it was just, It was just so funny because I was so excited. I was like, look at the detail on like this one specific thing. And she was like, yeah, okay. I'm like, oh no, that's probably a more reasonable response. But I mean, it's a larger picture thing than just that kind of stuff. And it's also priorities, like she's never been one for being super like pumped about camera specs because that's just not her deal. And so, but it was just so funny. And that happened like 15 minutes ago. But she was very excited for my excitement. And I'm excited too to see how these work together. Just having two cameras, it sounds like such a luxury, and it is, but wow, it can really do a lot. So that has been like the start of my summer break. And then to kind of go back and give an update on something I mentioned a while ago, because last time I talked about this, I was sort of just coming up with the idea. And now that it's been a thing for a while, I feel like I can come back. It's not, I'd say I'm like 50% of where I want to be, but I think I can offer some good insight on, which is my YouTube scheduling strategy. Because a few weeks ago, I kind of talked about where I wanted to go with that, which was doing weekly videos, but having a scheduled date, like really sticking to an actual upload date and time. So I've just been doing Thursday at 5:15 in the morning. And, there are a bunch of reasons why I chose Thursday, because I think they'd be best for my videos. And then I picked 5:15 in the morning just because it seems there's a lot of channels I watch that upload videos or at least publish their videos really early, and they seem to do really well. And so I thought I'd try that. And I usually wake up at 5:15 and I just kind of, I don't know, it's just like, I just like the idea that the video publishes even in summertime when I might not be waking up, that it does that. And so I've done that for the last, I think my voice just did a weird cracky thing. I've done that for the last 3 videos, I believe, where I've published it at 5:15, just scheduled it. I don't have to think about it. And it's been amazing. I mean, the videos have done really well, but I don't know if that's scheduling or that's because I've been trying to make better videos. So that's hard to say, but whatever I'm doing, I'll just keep doing that. But the scheduling part has been such a huge relief because, especially with the end of the school year, we had all these events and we had I was super busy at work, and then Heather and I were busy with all of these things happening outside of work too, just at night and weekends. And it was chaos for like a month. But I didn't want to miss making videos. And so I was able to make videos in advance when I had the time. I kind of spent one weekend where I had a little bit of extra time and I made like a couple of videos instead of just the one. And so I was able to schedule them out a little bit and then sort of jump ahead by about a week. And that just being 1 week ahead is like, the pressure that is not there is amazing because it's awesome. Even yesterday I was working on a video. Today is Thursday, so a video came out this morning. And then yesterday on Wednesday, I was working on another video, and I got to the point where I was pretty much going to finish it, but there's no pressure because halfway through me working on it, we needed to go somewhere and like take care of some other things. And normally when I'm struggling to finish a video, I would be like, oh no, I can't, I would just kind of stress out about that. And I didn't need to do that. Now it was like, okay, cool. Here's a good stopping point. We'll leave. I'll get back to it if I do, won't if I don't. And, eventually later in the day, I came back and finished it. And then earlier this morning, I was like, oh, now I'll work on the thumbnail and like the description and all that kind of stuff. But there wasn't that rush and that pressure that I felt so much in the past when I deal with making those videos. And just knowing like, that the next week is taken care of and the next one. And that's only being 1 week ahead. And so my goal is by the end of June, by the end of this month, to be 4 weeks ahead so that it's just like, I don't even need to stress at all about making videos. I can completely take my time. I can be in a totally different mindset when I'm making them, which probably would let me have a little bit more fun while I make them. And then it might even give me the opportunity to do more than one video sometimes per week, which I would really love to do. I really would love to be able to do 2 great videos every week, but I don't think I can do that consistently yet. So I don't want to like make that a thing, like a scheduled where then I'm going to fail. But one video a week is definitely doable. And then once I get ahead on my schedule, then I can add in possibly a second one. So that has been, I kind of mentioned that was something I wanted to do a few weeks ago. And now I'm in the middle of doing that, and it's working really well. And I'm excited to see, right now, like I said, I'm only 1 week ahead. Or I don't know if it's 2 weeks. I'm bad at math. But once I'm 4 weeks scheduled out, I would like to give you an update on how that's working and what that feels like. Because already I think it's incredible. And I think that since YouTube creator burnout is such a hot topic and such a, a big issue lately, something like this is a really great way to sort of combat that. And it has already alleviated so much stress for me, but without me having to sacrifice consistency on my channel. And I love that. Last year, I tried to eliminate stress by eliminating consistency and just being like, it is what it is. I'll do whatever I want to do. But I really want to focus and buckle down more on like building the channel. And I think consistency, it's just part of that. Like it just has to be part of that. So there's one other component, but I'm getting really thirsty and I want to try something. Because if you know me, you know that I love recording this podcast on the Rodecaster Pro. This sounds like such an ad, but it's not. I just really love this thing. And way back at the beginning of 2019, I placed an order. I feel like I talk too much about gear, but there's just so much good stuff. And so much of it is quite affordable. And, when I buy a piece of gear, I usually, I bought the Apple Watch 4 when it came out last year, but I knew for a year in advance that I was going to be updating my watch when the new one came out. So I was kind of setting aside money in advance for a year to be able to do that. And so, when I buy something like a camera, I've known like this summer I want to get a second camera. And so I've been budgeting and setting things aside to make that happen. It's not just totally irresponsible. Plus, like I haven't gotten, nice new clothes in like 2 years. So my priorities are kind of off. But back in January, February, I placed an order for the Rode Pod mic, which is a microphone that's it's an XLR microphone that's designed to work with the Procaster. I mean, it's just XLR, but the sound quality or whatever is supposed to go with it. But it's only $99, which in the world of microphones, its biggest competitor is probably like its most common competitor that's used in this arena is the Shure SM7B, which is a $350, $400 microphone. So $100, I mean, they're very different. That's what I'm recording. This is the first official podcast I've done. I've done some little projects with it. This is the first time I've used it for an extended period. So far, I really love this microphone. So it's awesome. But Rode also updated the Procaster a while ago to add a feature that it didn't have that I wanted it to have, which is record pause. So if I need to pause in the middle of a recording, I don't have to go and edit it out later. So right now I'm going to try it out. I want to get a sip of water, but I don't want you to have to listen to me drink water. So I'm going to try record pause, which means it should be a seamless thing to me being hydrated, where in my world, I'm going to take a second. And if that worked, then you would have just heard a seamless transition to me ending a sentence in a weird way. Whereas in my world, it could be days later. It's actually only like 30 seconds later. I drank some water and checked a message. But that's really cool. That was a thing that I wanted on this Procaster since the beginning, because the beauty of this tool, as I've said many times, is it lets you be seamless. So I can sit down here, I can press the intro song, I can bring up my microphone, I can bring up a guest, I can do the outro song, and then just upload it right away. I don't have to go back and edit anything in the conversation. But without record pause, you have to do one solid streak. So if something happens, if someone comes to the door or you need to use the restroom or get a drink of water, you just gotta like go with it. But record pause, you can just pause it with these seamless gaps. It just improves the workflow. I really appreciate that a company actually adds in these features. Every firmware update for this thing adds something new to it, which is cool. And I've made a couple videos about it, and through that, I've found this little like Rodecaster audio / podcaster community, which is great. And it's like such a cool group of people who are super excited about the options this thing's open up. super positive, love it, really excited about it. But going back to YouTube strategy, I also did something that I've been thinking of doing for a long time, but I didn't know how I felt about it, which is I signed up, and this is next week, so I signed up for a consultation session with someone from Tim Schmoyer's team on video creators. And I've been listening to his podcast for a while, which has been really helpful. It's not like the cheesy YouTube guru thing, which, is a very saturated niche, but it's like, hey, here's actual practical advice to help grow things in a way that works really well. And I don't know if he's just a really good salesman or if it's just, genuinely this way, but in every episode or so, at some point, his consultation services and stuff will pop up. I'm sure that is intentional, but he does it really well where someone asks questions or they talk about things and just well, that's what we're for over here. They do a whole course, which I didn't have the time or money for, but I signed up for just an hour consultation, which is going to be next Thursday. And what I really want, now that I have sort of like a production strategy, I guess, and a vague content strategy, is I want somebody to come in and be an objective third-party perspective to kind of help me figure out where to go. Because not that I couldn't figure it out, but at the point now where there's like 150 videos on my channel, I've been doing it for a couple of years. It's been growing well. I feel like it could be growing better. I just want to see if there's something I'm missing, or if it seems really obvious. Like, yeah, when I see your channel, I would like to watch more of blank, but you're giving me this instead of that. And, I like all the things I make videos about. So at this point, I feel like pretty okay leaning into if somebody goes, yeah, you focus it more in this area or focus more in that area, or, this should be your brand, or this is what you want to help people connect with, or the message that you want to promote them. Like, rather than me just trying to figure it out, I'm really interested to see what somebody who's just going to look at things cold and, not cold emotionally, but, without any preconceived notions, just sort of like, okay, here we go. This is what I'm seeing. This is where, based on a lot of experience, where you need to go, and then see if I can come up with a plan from that. So it's kind of scary, but I'm super excited to see where that goes. I've never done anything like it. And not to say that you need to spend any kind of money to do this stuff, but I'm looking right now at a little whiteboard that's on the back of my door that I got. I don't know when I got that, maybe a little over a year and a half ago. And it's a $12 whiteboard from the office supply store, but I bought it so that on the back of the door, I could list like video ideas and just things related to my channel. And there was something about that where I know like I buy gear and stuff, but I do photography and videography for fun. I do it as my job. I've done it my whole life. So that's not anything new. There was something about buying that $12 whiteboard where it was telling me like, you are actually investing money and time into this channel that you're trying to build. And I don't know why like that was such a big deal to me, but it really was. And so this is kind of that where it's like, okay, you're now going to invest more money and time into this thing because it is something that you value and that you want to grow and take care of. And that feels really cool. And I'm just curious to see where that's going to go. And then the icing on that cake is I feel so bad. But I'll just go into this where Heather and I, like, we talk about digital media and stuff all the time. Obviously, like, it's a big part of both of our lives, and it's a very shared passion for the two of us. So we talk about it a lot, like kind of nonstop, and it's fun. Like, it's really, really enjoyable. But for the past few months, we haven't really talked about like our YouTube channels together because she's been so busy with client work and with her business that she hasn't really had the time to focus on her channel, which, makes sense because there's only so many hours in the day, and I've been focused on growing mine. But I know she's also, we talked about this a little bit last week when she was here, but she's also been feeling, like a little burnt out and a little bit confused about strategy for just her own channel and stuff. And so I kind of thought, okay, she's just not that into it anymore. So I don't want to be over here just like, let's talk about our channels all the time. And I just didn't. And, I'd listen to podcasts or go to like Facebook groups or whatever. And then I felt so bad because about 2 weeks ago, she said she felt that she thought like I had outgrown her advice on YouTube, where like, yeah, I didn't need her anymore and I had all these other strategies and all these other people, which was so not the case at all. It was just I didn't think that she wanted to do that anymore. She's like, no, like just because I'm confused on my channel doesn't mean I don't want to help you with yours. She's like, plus I'm, like excited to work on a new strategy for her own channel. And she was excited to like have a new approach to it. And I just felt so silly. And she was like, yeah, I felt bad that she had felt like I had outgrown it, which was not the case. And so she was like, yeah, if you want help, like I'll give you like a total channel review where we can go through and like develop all that, which I really want. And now I'm excited because what I want to do is get my video creators consultation, take all of that information from a totally objective third party, and then spend time with Heather to go through and get another perspective from a not objective third party, like a very knowledgeable but clearly biased third party. But that doesn't mean she's not going to tell me when something's bad or something needs to change. And then kind of see what the overlap is, or just sort of merge those two things together and see if it answers any questions for me. But where I think that's useful, because unfortunately not everyone has access to Heather or, a consultation or whatever, but getting somebody to look at your stuff, I think is important. I've avoided that for a lot of time, and it's sort of scary because you know what your idea is, and it should be, especially if you're in my case where it is just a thing you're doing for fun, on the side. It's not a source of income. It's not your job. Like, it would suck if nobody watched or subscribed or whatever, but it also wouldn't like, be the end of the world. But I still think getting that feedback is really crucial, and having that input of, what you're trying to do, but unless you're getting feedback from somebody else, you might not know exactly how well you're succeeding or how well you're not succeeding at that, how well you're not succeeding, how well you're failing. And that, that could just be anyone that you trust their opinion of can probably offer some pretty valuable insight. And yeah, and that's kind of one of the things we've been sort of working on together over the past couple of weeks. But anyway, to kind of move on from that, the other thing that's been sort of going on, especially it's related to work and it's related to YouTube strategy stuff, is just sort of figuring out what the brand is. And I think this is something, it all goes back to, it goes back to things that I've dealt with my whole life. But if you saw Into the Spider-Verse, that is such a perfect example of it. It's like one of the best movies. I plan to watch it several times this summer. But that movie's all about, trying to succeed at something that other people are also doing, but it's hard to be successful until you figure out how to utilize your strengths and to lean into your own way of doing something. And that's really hard. And I'm noticing that trend on there's trends on YouTube where just a bunch of the same types of videos, a bunch of the same style, the same techniques just start to pop up in any sort of niche. And I've completely been a part of that too. And some of that is just fun. Like that's what you like and you want to make that. And that's totally cool. And other parts of it is, I think, the absence or lack of a clear understanding of what your personal brand is. And even if you are doing it as a hobby, you have a personal brand, or you should have a personal brand or be developing one. Just, you kind of need it, like, just as a person. It's like your resume in 2019. which is, of course, Heather's area of expertise far beyond pretty much anyone I've ever met. But for me, being able to do that is still kind of a struggle because I started the YouTube channel, as I'm sure many people do, as like a side thing, as sort of a hobby. And I know that when I started it, I wanted it to be separate from work. Like it wasn't part of my job. It was a completely separate thing. And it was related because I teach digital media and YouTube is digital media and, there's that connection. But I wanted to just have it as an outlet over here. And of course, especially now it's been a couple years, the two are sort of bleeding into each other a little bit, but I kind of really like it. And I'm trying to figure out, this is one of the things I'm going to ask in my consult next week, is sort of how to incorporate that. One thing I don't want to do is I do not want my channel to be my like teacher YouTube channel. I don't want that. I don't want it to be like, I never promote it to students. I don't want to promote it to students. That's it. They can find out because, it's 2019. It's not hard to find out when people have things like a YouTube channel online. But I don't want to promote it. I want it to be separate. But if students find out about it, I also want it to not be, a terrible thing. And beyond that, I also want people who I don't know in the greater world, when they find it, like, what is the thing that makes that channel different? And that's probably something that anyone with any channel does need to figure out, is what makes you and what you're doing different from all of the other people. Because if you're just another tech channel or photo channel or beauty channel or food channel or whatever, it's like there's so many that are so good. Like, what are you doing that's different? It doesn't even necessarily have to mean better, but sometimes different can just be better. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I really think that teaching is a part of that because, if you look up a camera, like if I do my EOS R camera review and you go to YouTube and you type in EOS R review, there's going to be like an endless list of white dudes in their 30s sitting at a table talking about this camera. So why should someone listen to this white dude in his 30s talking about that camera? And, I think the fact that I work with these things and teach them and use them in not only a professional setting, but a kind of different than typical professional setting, and have that perspective and experience and background, is a valuable asset that I shouldn't necessarily compartmentalize as much as I have been. But I don't really know an effective way I like to do that. And so I keep hitting the microphone. And so that's something that I want to work on, and that's something I want to figure out because it's important. Because also a couple weeks ago, I did the podcast where it was our Share Spark TV episode. I took the audio from that where Heather was interviewing me after the Teacher of the Year thing. And that was like a big deal. I still don't quite even understand the big deal that it was, because to get to that point, like, that's a huge honor, and I don't even know how to express it in words. But that is something that's worth leveraging. And even the people at like our county office of education, as we're now going to like the state level of trying to put applications together to compete, I guess, or be finalists for the state teacher of the year. They're talking about like, this is a huge honor and you should be able to leverage it. And by nature, teachers tend to be humble people who like to give credit to those around them, their students and their support staff and administration. Teachers don't really like to stand in the spotlight a lot of the times, which I think is true. And so I think this is going to be a really cool opportunity to have something that is very unique. Like that kind of a distinction as being a county teacher of the year. And then wherever that goes, if that goes nowhere, still amazing. But if it goes to like a state finalist or a state teacher, that's huge. And it would be foolish to waste that opportunity by not, utilizing it for some other greater purpose to help gain credibility, to, spread message or information to others, to do something valuable with it. But I don't know. I have such a hard time. I either know how to like completely not like downplay everything where I'm like, oh, it's just a thing. Like, don't worry about it, when it's actually a really big deal. Or I feel like when I talk about those things that it then becomes too, it's like icky. Like it's too much of like boasting and braggadocious. And I don't want that. So I think that that's going to be interesting, is how to like leverage this knowledge and experience in a way that is effective and endearing rather than braggadocious and gross. Braggadocious. And I don't really know how to do that. But the cool part though is that again, my professional life dealing with like this next year coming up is going to be insane with the Teacher of the Year thing. It's like being like a Miss America person, where you have all these events you have to go to, and there's all these responsibilities and things, which I'm super excited about. I think it's going to be really, really fun. But I think, I have to get better at learning how to like talk about myself in a proud way without being overdone. And I need to be able to do that on my channel, and learning to do that on my channel is going to help me do it professionally. And learning how to do it professionally is going to help me do it on my channel. So again, the two are once again building each other. So basically, like, I feel like there needs to be more of a melding between the personal and professional sides of me, but I don't know the best way to do that. And I think there's probably a lot of people who are in that boat with their YouTube channels or their online brands or whatever. And so we'll see. Anything that I learn along the way, I will, of course, pass along and see how that goes. But it's really kind of a exciting thing to be a part of, and I can't wait to do more with it. And then I guess last but not least, since it is the beginning of summer and the end of the school year, and we're talking about digital media and merging personal and professional lives and interests, the end of this school year was so fantastic, because I mean, the starting a digital media program is really difficult. And luckily I've had a lot of support, but getting there, I think even under the best circumstances, anything like that is going to be challenging. You're building something that needs to be part of an existing culture, and how do you do that? And how does it get to a point where, my program is called Impact, which is, a name, and it's the Institute of Media Production Arts and Creative Technology. And that's a name that like I just came up with at the kitchen table, trying to think of, what to call something and what I wanted a name to communicate. And you can have an idea of something, and now it's at the point where, officials in the city we live in will say like, hey, are there any impact kids that can help us with this like, it's a thing. Like, being an impact person is a thing, but it's just an idea that you had in your brain. Like, you can just come up with an idea that becomes a very tangible thing in the world. And that's cool. And that's what you hope will happen. But this year is when I really saw it happen. And that is not at all a pat on my own back, because it's, like, it's basically like I built the sandbox, but now I'm very like, I can't believe the sand castles that everyone has built in them. And like, I can't take credit for what they've done. Like, it's really cool to be a part of providing tools for people, but the things that like the students created this year, the work that they put in, it was unbelievable. And at the end of the year, now that the program's been there long enough and students sort of understand it, and there's a culture existing within it, they were so able to well communicate. That was a terrible sentence. They were very capable of communicating in a meaningful way what that meant to them, which was just like the most wonderful thing to hear, that something like that is so meaningful, and that it can be centered around something as valuable as like learning digital media and learning these skills, and something as fun as that. Something as fun as learning about cameras and audio and lighting can really have that positive impact, pun fully intended, on somebody's life and where they want to go and what they want to do, and how they take those skills and turn them into something else that affects other people positively. Like, that is the coolest thing in the world, and I don't know how to even put that into words, the pride of seeing that. And that's kind of one of the things that I think is really good about that I'm lucky to have in my job, but I also think is good when you really look at what like the internet is and what all these platforms do. Because people talk about YouTube very negatively sometimes, and YouTube gets in the press for negative things a lot of the time. But if you're somebody on YouTube and you're making videos, regardless of the size of your audience or your view counts or whatever, if you're really putting your heart into making something that you care about, whether it's silly, goofy, serious, whatever, at some point, you're probably going to get at least a comment or a message from somebody that says something really meaningful, where they're like, I learned a lot. This was really helpful. This means a lot. Like, I enjoyed, like, you're going to start seeing this sort of positive thing and this support from people that you never would have even knew existed or would have never known that you existed otherwise. And so, when you're in a culture where like everything is so divided and divisive, it's kind of a great reminder of the humanity that does still exist there. And that's really cool. And teaching high school, one of the things, there's sort of this like divide between high school and middle school teachers. I don't know, or no, sorry, high school and elementary school teachers. And I don't know where middle school teachers, they're sort of in the middle. But I guess they're more towards the high school end. But it's sort of like people are separated into two camps where it's, high school teachers are like, yes, I would only teach high school kids. I never want to teach little kids. The elementary school teachers are like, little kids are great. I'm terrified of the big kids. No way. And then a lot of times people who aren't teachers are just like, kids are all terrible and I would never want to deal with any of them. And I understand why you might have that perception as somebody on the outside. But what I can say, every single school year, and I just finished my 9th year, every year you're introduced to a group of people, which is just a random like swatch of the population of a generation. And every year, yes, there are those annoying pain in the butt people sometimes, even if they're not my students, they're, on campus. Like that happens anywhere that you go. But more than that, there's so many smart, nice, concerned, talented, capable, caring people. And when you go year after year and you see that and you're like, okay, now you're going to go out into the world and start taking over things. Like you're going to be the generation that takes over. And it doesn't seem terrifying because it feels like the world would be in good hands. That is such a positive and optimistic thing to feel that I don't think a lot of people really do understand, because it's such a common thing to think that the world is just getting worse and worse and worse all the time. But there's so many signs of positivity. Even, one of the things that happens as a teacher, if you teach seniors, your senior class usually leaves a week or two before the school year ends, because they need to get all their grades in and all their transcripts out to colleges, and then there's graduation. So the last day of school, they're not even there. They leave a week or two early, and then the last week or two is just the students in grades 9 through 11. So you're kind of missing a 25% of your student population. And every year when seniors graduate, there's always people where you're just like, as a teacher, where you're like, what am I going to do without these students? Like how, you really rely on them, especially in a program like I have. It's not just me directing people. Like I really need people I can count on. I really need people that are reliable and talented and hardworking and can, it's like if you are a business owner and some really great employees leave every year and you're like, oh God, like how's our business going to function without them? And every once in a while, which is this current year that just ended, there's not just one or two, there's like a huge number of those people. And that's what just happened, where it was like this amazing giant group of those students left, where you're just like, oh my God, like, will the building still stand without them? And it's actually scary. And I can fully admit that, you know, when you go back to school after they're gone and it's those last couple weeks and it's just the other students, 9 through 12, who, you know, you have your rapport with, you have relationships with, like you know, it's not bad, but there's definitely a feeling of fear of like, how is this train going to keep going? And what has happened every single time, even when you don't think it's going to happen, is students rise to the occasion. They step up and they do things that are out of their comfort zone to make sure that stuff still gets done. Like they try new challenges, they fail at new things. But it's crazy. And even by the end of this school year, it was already like sort of a different rhythm coming into play of just like, oh, this person does this now, and this person's good at that. And oh, this person had this idea that's going to change the way we do that. And I mean, that happens every year, but sometimes you really get scared that it's not going to happen. And it still does. And that's because there's always that next wave of something good. And I don't think enough people really realize that. And I know it's not, I don't know what got me on this topic, but to just sort of end with talking about the school year and positivity and, you know, digital media is just such a chance to immediately see people's skills and talents and insights and how they express themselves. And I really don't think that people outside of education get enough of that. I think that they hear the negative, they see the negative, they, you know, sometimes hear and see exaggerated versions of reality, and they sort of think that the world is falling apart, whereas when you're inside it, you can sort of see the opposite. You can, I mean, you can just see that like the world is in very good hands. There are people who are growing up and becoming adults who, as long as they have care and support and opportunities to show what they can do, will do an amazing job at everything. And that really is such a calming, nice way to feel about things. So I think this is just a cool thought to think of when you feel down or when you see a group of scary looking teenagers at the mall and you want to go the other way. They're probably not that scary, actually. So they're probably actually doing something cool in some way. And that is my favorite thing about digital media, is that they don't have to wait. Nobody has to wait. It doesn't matter how old you are. You don't have to wait until you get permission or reach a certain level to do something. You can just do it right now, your way, the best that you can. And I think that's pretty darn awesome. So with that being said, I am at So Darn Tom on all the things. If you want to reach out, I would really love it. I do like to actually connect with people. It's super cool. And of course, I have my YouTube channel, The Enthusiasm Project, which I would love for you to check out. Watch some videos. Let me know what you think. I'll definitely update you after my consultation next week. And until then, I don't know how to end these things. Bye.